Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Lethbridge police are investigating following a report of an attempted abduction of a 12-year-old girl. A video of a pastor yelling at Calgary police to get out of his church has gone viral. We speak with a pastor who explains why he was so upset. And the Alberta government has expanded its COVID-19 vaccine rollout program. We will tell you who's up next.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge police are investigating after a 12-year-old girl reported 5 people had attempted to abduct her. On Sunday, police received a call from the girl at about 2:30 in the afternoon. The child says a van pulled up beside her near the Lakeview School baseball diamonds on Henderson Lake Boulevard South. BCN's Ainsley O'Reilly is at the scene and has more details for us. Ainsley, what do we know so far?
Lethbridge police say that they searched the area and were unable to locate the vehicle and subjects. The 12-year-old says that 3 males and 2 females in their mid-20s got out of the van and tried to chase her on foot and grab her. She says she was able to elude them away, forcing them back southbound on Henderson Lake Boulevard. The vehicle was described as a large white Chevrolet van with red or rusted wheels, tinted windows, and an Alberta license plate. How?
The investigation is ongoing. Anyone with information about this incident is asked to call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. It was a very busy Holy Week for one pastor in Calgary as he had police show up in his church on Saturday, and he was not very happy about it. Pastor Archer Pawlowski from Street Church had the police show up without a search warrant just before his service was about to begin. Now, Section 176 of the Canadian Criminal Code says it's illegal to disturb a religious service. Now, here's a portion of the video.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Okay. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out.
AHS officials and the Calgary police did eventually leave. Now, joining me now is Pastor Archer Pawlowski, the man you could hear in the video yelling for everyone to get out. Pastor, explain how this really unfolded.
I came and opened the church, and the choir started to practice, and the prayer group started to pray. And then I turned and I saw authorities. I saw a lady with a mask on inside and the police behind and some armed officers behind. And I was absolutely taken by surprise. So I walked straight and I just said, get out, and they would not budge. They would not move. So I ran quickly for my telephone. I was taken by surprise. I didn't have anything with me. I didn't have any recording device. So I just grabbed my telephone and I started to record. Why I record? Because you never know how those people will react. And I always have to assume that they are here to hurt me and my parishioners. So I want to have a recording of everything I say and everything I do. So I did what I did. I saw armed officers. I saw an officer standing there with his gun, with his taser, with his handcuffs, and some people that were not invited in our church, that they came in the authority of the state, uninvited, in a capacity not to help, but to intimidate and harass.
So was your Easter service above the maximum 15% capacity limit as per the province's health restrictions?
That was not even close to 15%. It was just few people there. We didn't even start it when they walked in. And I had runs with authorities before, and I told them, do not come to the church. You're not allowed to come to the church. I forbid you to intimidate my parishioners and churchgoers. You're not to take pictures of children and women. If you want to talk to me, call me. I'll gladly go for a coffee with you. I will explain. If you want to come and see the facility, you're welcome to come, but not during church service.
Now, you must have felt a little intimidated. Will you be filing a lawsuit?
I'm waiting for the authorities. I'm waiting what they are going to do. I am contemplating. But, for the record, I just want to say I have no ill intentions towards police. I like police officers. I like authorities. I am glad that we have police force. I'm not a BLM that shouts, defund the police. I like to see police officers, but not in that capacity. Do not intimidate. Do not harass. Do not break the law. I am always, all my life, I have been standing against corruption. When I see corruption, everything in me rises up because I grew up in a lawless society. I grew up in Poland behind the Iron Curtain under the boot of the Soviets. So we didn't have laws. We didn't have, law and order. We had thugs in a force of police that were beating people, torturing people, arresting people without really a proper trial. And they were sending people to jail for nothing, just for opposition to the government, just because they wanted to, just because they could. So when I see stuff like this, everything in me brings back my childhood, and I just want to yell, don't do this.
That was Pastor Artur Pawlowski with Street Church in Calgary. Now, Bridge City News also reached out to the Calgary Police Service for comment, and this is what they had to say in a release statement earlier today. A uniformed member of the Calgary Police Service attended a call to assist AHS and Calgary bylaw in relation to a religious gathering. The concern was that the people in attendance were not adhering to the government's COVID-19 public health orders. The organizer of the gathering was uncooperative with the health inspector and repeatedly raised his voice, asking all parties to leave, which they did about a minute after entry. No tickets were issued at the time, and it'll be up to our partner agencies to determine subsequent enforcement activity in response to the situation. Kelly Stickle is the senior pastor of My Victory Churches here in Southern Alberta. He says during uncertain times like these, it's very important to replace the what-ifs in life with God is.
So what if I get cancer? Well, God is my healer. Well, what if I lose my job? Well, God is my provider. Well, what if? And whatever the what if is, the Bible has the answer. And again, it shifts my focus, but it puts my trust in God.
Catch the full interview with Pastor Kelly as he also discusses what God says in regards to fear and how to deal with it in uncertain times. That's coming up later in our broadcast. The results of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce's 2021 Brighter Together survey will be discussed with Jobs Minister Doug Schweitzer on Tuesday. In conjunction with Economic Development Lethbridge, the survey asked Southern Alberta business owners what they need most right now. Now, the CEO of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, Cindy Voss, says it's extremely difficult to understand and help business owners because information from both provincial and federal governments is continuously evolving.
Two governments. So where does the everyday business fit into the puzzle with two governments? The provincial government and the federal government aren't giving answers, clear answers. And so we're stuck. People are getting discouraged because you can only lay your employees off so much often. You can only look at your employees and know they have families that they have to take care of so many times. Like it's a different world, and between those that have been laid off and those that have got to work through the entire pandemic. And that's where we're seeing quite a difference is between those that have got to work and those that haven't got to work.
The Alberta government announced that Phase 2B vaccine appointments are now available through Alberta Health Services. That means anyone born in 1963 or earlier with eligible health conditions, including cancer, diabetes, or another disability, can now book appointments with AHS online or by calling 811. Officials say you can also continue to book through participating pharmacies. AHS says by April 23rd, all Albertans born in 2005 or earlier with eligible high-risk conditions will also be able to begin booking an appointment to get their COVID-19 vaccine shot. A mass vaccination site at Calgary's TELUS Convention Centre is opened. Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi says large amounts of vaccine doses are coming to Canada in April, May, and June. He says as supply comes in, the clinic will ramp up in order to get more people vaccinated. When it's fully operational and a vaccine supply increases, the site could administer 6,000 shots through 120 vaccination stations. When it comes to being healthy and getting in shape, where should we start? Is it wise to hit the gym and go all out? As much as we can with the current health restrictions. Shane Garner, the owner of Anytime Fitness, says a good start is simply to start walking, but walking a lot.
Everyone carries a cell phone around them. It already usually tracks your steps for you. And even just tracking your steps is a step in the right direction. For most people that are just getting into it, is we tell people to aim for about 3,500 steps a day. Maybe if you're a bit more advanced, then shooting for 5,000 steps a day. And then things like, maybe they don't want to come to a gym quite yet, but using your body weight for exercises, things like jumping jacks or body weight squats or stretching. And again, just using your body for what it's meant for.
Garner will also discuss how well Lethbridge is doing when it comes to physical fitness. That Q&A with Jeanette Rocher is coming up later in our newscast. Dry conditions along with strong winds across Alberta are keeping firefighters very busy. Provincial officials say conditions point to a bad wildfire season unless there's a significant rainfall this spring. Alberta's already had more than 30 fires since the wildfire season began on March 1st. There are 8 fire bans in southern Alberta and more than 25 fire advisories. Proposed legislation in Montana could make the fate of an Alberta man on death row more tenuous. Ronald Smith, who's originally from Red Deer, has been on death row since 1983 for killing 2 Indigenous men. But all executions have been stayed in Montana since 2015. The state's House of Representatives has passed a bill that would make executions easier, and it goes before the Senate later this week. The city of Humboldt is planning a virtual ceremony on Tuesday to mark the 3rd anniversary of a bus crash involving its junior hockey team. 16 people were killed and 13 others were injured when a semi-truck driver missed a stop sign at a rural intersection and drove into the path of the team's bus on April the 6th of 2018. Humboldt also plans on building a $25 million tribute center in addition to the roadside memorial honoring the victims of the bus crash.
We feel so grateful that the members of the Memorials Committee recognize that although people from around the world will always associate Humboldt with the tragedy, there might be only one opportunity to create a lasting tribute. A tribute to stand as a symbol of all the inspirational stories that can be told because of that fateful day.
The city says the memorial has been planned with the victims' families. It'll be live streamed on the city's Facebook page at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday afternoon Saskatchewan time and will include performances by local musicians. The Center for Disease Control in the United States has updated its travel guidance and now says fully vaccinated people can travel within the U.S. without getting tested for the novel coronavirus or going into quarantine afterward.
We state that fully vaccinated people can resume travel at low risk to themselves. For domestic travel, fully vaccinated people do not need to get a COVID-19 test before or after travel and do not need to self-quarantine after travel. For example, fully vaccinated grandparents can fly to visit their healthy grandkids without getting a COVID-19 test or self-quarantining, provided they follow the other recommended prevention measures while traveling.
Volunteers with the Christian organization Samaritan's Purse continue to help those impacted by the devastating tornadoes and storms which hit Alabama. They're clearing yard debris, cutting up fallen trees, and helping homeowners the best they can. We have more now in this story.
The weather outside, it was cloudy, it was overcast. It wasn't anything that would lead you to believe that, oh my gosh, this looks like this is going to be a devastating storm. So it just, it just looked overcast. Then the power goes out. It felt like the temperature dropped 10 degrees, and immediately right after that happened, the pressure changed. Pops your ears, so uncomfortable. I just told my wife and daughter, let's hang on because this is the real deal here. And you could hear it in the distance, faintly, and as the sound grew, you knew it was getting closer, and then you could tell when it was there, it was loud. That's a fear that I have not experienced in my lifetime. I'm 49 years old. I was very afraid. Wife's okay, daughter's okay. Such a sigh of relief. Thank you, Lord, for protecting us and keeping us safe. He was looking out for us in a big way. When I saw the tree just snapped right there, it takes your breath away because it's like, oh my gosh. It snapped that tree like it was absolutely nothing. To see Samaritan Spurs come in here in just in a few hours, coordinated to, boom, here we come, here we go, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're doing this, and here we go. This is amazing, just to see it in action, and we can't thank you enough for what you've done. And you know what? And now you're off to do it somewhere else, to help somebody else. And that's awesome. Awesome.
After some of the recent snow we saw here in southwestern Alberta, it was good to see the warmer temperatures once again, and the mercury will be climbing even further over the next couple of days. Full weather details are coming up. We had a fairly mild day here in the city, clear sky and not a lot of wind, which is always a blessing here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Roche is back with a complete look at the long-range weather forecast. Jeanette, the warmer temperatures should be sticking around until what, Thursday?
Yeah, it looks like a pretty decent week ahead of us, Hal, but you know, a chance of showers or flurries on Thursday. What can you say? It is spring. It's a little bit unpredictable. That's when the temperature is going to drop a little bit too. But until then, we're still looking at some lovely teen temperatures. Overnight this evening, we do have a slight chance of wind. Not too bad, about 20 kilometers per hour. Clear skies though, -2 is our overnight low. Into tomorrow, sunshine, 15 degrees, wind coming at us about 40 kilometers per hour. Into Wednesday, lots of sunshine, beautiful 16 degrees. Wednesday evening though, that's when we could get that 60% chance of showers. By Thursday, those showers could possibly turn to flurries. So it's a 60% chance of showers or flurries. So we'll see how that shapes up later on in the week there. High of 3 for Thursday, 10 degrees, the high for Friday, 8 on Saturday, and 9 degrees for Sunday. So for the most part, lovely week, except that strange day there Thursday. But the average high for this time of year, 11 degrees. Average low, -3. 22 was our high temperature back in 1969. And in 1975, we had our chilliest day on record, which was -21. 6:59 is when the sun rose this morning, and our sunset this evening was at 8, or it will be at 8:08 p.m., I should say. So yeah, loving these long days as we're getting into the 8 o'clock hour now for our sunset. Over on the west coast tomorrow, pretty decent mix of sun and cloud in Victoria. Could be a little bit windy by the water though. 11 degrees the high, 13 the high for Vancouver, 11 in Edmonton with a mix of sun and cloud. Sunny in Calgary tomorrow with a high of 14. Calgary could be experiencing some increasing clouds late in the afternoon and also some 40 kilometer per hour winds. Lots of sunshine across the rest of the prairies tomorrow. 15 the high in Saskatoon. Same thing for Regina. They're actually getting a UV index of 5. Same for Winnipeg. Sunshine, 14 degrees. Winnipeg a little bit more windy though. Slight winds with about 15 kilometers per hour. In Toronto, mix of sun and cloud, 13 degrees is the high. 15 in Ottawa, sunshine and sunny skies in Montreal tomorrow with a high of 13 degrees. It should be a pretty lovely day in the central region of our country. Over in the East Coast here, we're looking at possible precipitation. So we got a 60% chance of showers in both Fredericton and Halifax tomorrow with some fog patches dissipating around noon as well. And a chance of showers also later on in the day for Charlottetown with a high of 6 degrees. 5 degrees the high. They could experience 5 to 10 millimeters of rain there. So it's going to be rainy, drizzly, showery, and fog patches as well. Also some wind there as well. So there you go. That is your forecast.
Transat AT shares plummeted today in the wake of Air Canada's decision to end its takeover bid for the tour operator. Transat shares were down almost 23%, but rebounded slightly, still being down 18%. Air Canada shares, meanwhile, went up 2.3%. Canada's largest airline says it was pulling the plug on the potential takeover of Transat over Europe's unwillingness to approve the deal. Industry experts say Transat will now look for alternatives, including Pierre-Carl Palado's offer of $5 per share and Transat's standalone business plan. The U.S. Supreme Court says it is siding with Google in an $8 billion copyright dispute with Oracle. The case has to do with Google's creation of the Android operating system, now used on many of its smartphones. To create Android, Google wrote millions of lines of new computer code, but also used more than 11,000 lines of code that is part of Oracle's Java platform. Google says what it did is long considered common practice in the industry, a practice that has been good for technical progress. GameStop says it is selling up to 3.5 million of its shares. That is a move analysts say will allow the video game retailer to take advantage of the big surge in its stock price this year. The company says shares will be sold through an at-the-market offering that will let a publicly traded company to raise capital over time by offering securities into the already existing trading market. GameStop plans to use proceeds to strengthen its balance sheet and to speed up its transformation process. South Korean electronics maker LG says it is getting out of its loss-making mobile phone business. Instead, the company says it will focus on electric vehicle components and robotics. LG says its board has already approved the shift in strategy. It expects to fully exit the mobile phone business by the end of July. LG was once the third largest mobile phone maker, but lost a lot of its share to China and other competitors. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 36 points on the day to finish at 19,026. The Dow was up 373 points to 33,527. The S&P 500 was up 58 points to 4,077, and the Nasdaq was up 225 points on the day to 13,705. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 267 to 58.78 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 12 cents to 252 US. Gold was down 2 cents to 1728.25 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at 24.88 US an ounce. Wheat is at $305 per metric ton, barley's at $315, canola's at $742, and corn was at $340 per metric ton. Live cattle were up $1.35 to $121.38. Feeder cattle were up $2.58 to $146.45, and lean hogs were up 63 cents to $102.60. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.84 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Lethbridge police are investigating after a 12-year-old girl reported 5 people had attempted to abduct her. On Sunday, police received a call from the girl around 2:30 in the afternoon. The girl says a van pulled up beside her near the Lakeview School baseball diamonds on Henderson Lake Boulevard South. The vehicle was described as a white Chevrolet van with red or rusted wheels, tinted windows, and an Alberta license plate. If you have any information that can help police with their investigation, call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us have experienced fear. Now, stats have shown that anxiety and depression rates have gone through the roof with all of the lockdowns we've been experiencing. Coming up, an interview with Pastor Kelly Stickle from My Victory Churches in Southern Alberta, who has godly tips on how to deal with fear. That Q&A is on deck. Fear, it's everywhere in our society. We tend to fear things like losing our job. We fear failure, what the future may hold. And of course, a lot of people fear getting sick and dying, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us now to talk about how to overcome our fears is Pastor Kelly Stickle, the lead pastor of My Victory Churches in Lethbridge and Southern Alberta. Welcome back to Bridge City News, Pastor Kelly.
Thanks for having me, Hal. It's great to be here.
You bet. I'm not sure we've ever seen this kind and this level of fear before in our lifetime, especially in my lifetime. Now, some fears can be justified, but do you think a lot of the fears we have are somewhat irrational or even unjustified?
Yeah, I would say that probably the majority of the fear that we have as human beings is unjustified. We have this magical way of having our brains just drift off into what ifs and the unknowns, and a lot of those things we will conjure up, and the more we focus on them and pander to those what ifs, those imaginations, the worse it gets. And I think just human nature for all of us is that we do battle fear, and the majority of those fears would definitely be irrational.
Now, Pastor Kelly, some people might argue, listen, I'm not afraid, I'm just a little concerned here. So in your opinion, what's the difference between fear and simply being concerned about something?
Yeah, I think when, again, concern is healthy, and fear, there's a healthy part of fear that is, we want to be cautious, and it's a protective mechanism for all of us. So having concern is good. But I think when you dwell on concern and probably put your focus there and your weight on concern, it easily drifts into irrational fear, and we go beyond just being cautious to being imprisoned by and locked down by fear. And I think when it crosses over into fear with concern, you should still be able to move ahead. But fear is going to actually cause you to pause and to either fight or flight or freeze. And And I think it's important for us. We don't want to get into a place where we just stop and we don't move ahead and we don't progress. And that's when it becomes, I think, dangerous fear.
You know, you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes people are so afraid, so fearful that they just stay where they are. They don't move. They don't progress or move forward, like you said. Now, there are differing views on how to respond to the COVID-19 situation. Now, but whatever an individual's opinion may be on wearing masks or getting vaccinated, what advice do you have for those who are living in a constant state of fear?
Well, I'm not going to take sides on masks or no masks or any of that. But when it comes to dealing with fear is unhealthy. In my opinion, it's a deadly virus in and of itself. And I say that because it continually grows. It doesn't seem to go away. It dwells unless you intentionally address it and move beyond that. But in order to move beyond fear, I think one of the biggest things that we need to be able to do is as a Christian, we should put our trust in God. And a lot of times our fear is based on the unknown or the uncertainty. And that's certainly what's going on now, is the uncertainty of the virus, the uncertainty of the economy, the uncertainty of school and protection, and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now creates this uncertainty, and uncertainty feeds fear. But ultimately, as Christians, our trust needs to be in God. And there's a lot of what ifs we can't answer right now, a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainties. But ultimately, God has not left the throne. God has nothing's outside of his control. And ultimately, to overcome our fear, it's looking to him and saying, okay, I trust you, and what that you are still in control.
Do we tend to believe our circumstances more than believing in what God has truly promised for our lives?
Absolutely. I think just human nature for all of us, that we will focus on our circumstance, because our circumstance, let's just be real, that's what's tangible right in front of us. That's what we see, touch, sense. And that's, right there. And so because it's so prevalent in our lives and so right there, when you're going through a disease, you feel the pain. Well, that's a circumstance. You feel that. So to say, I'm feeling pain, can I still have faith in God? Yes. But you actually have to take your mind and saying, I'm going to look beyond what I see, feel, sense, and I've got to still trust that and lean on God and trust him.
So Pastor Kelly, why do you think so many people fear death? And how can we get to the point of faith that we trust God so much that we actually are okay with the prospect of dying?
Well, as believers, I mean, Paul addressed this multiple times in the Bible, and he was addressing a church that was facing threats of death every single day just for being believers. And so it's a very real fear. And I think the reason why we fear death is because it's the great unknown. It's we just don't know, and certainly our minds can play tricks on us because we don't know. We've never been there. What's going to happen, and how's it going to happen? And we all have our speculations. But what Paul said, to the believers, and what the writer of Hebrews said as well, is that especially the writer of Hebrews said that this hope is an anchor for our soul. The hope that he was referring to is the resurrection of Jesus, and the fact that because of the resurrection of Jesus, that means that there is eternal life for us. And a lot of times, the death and the fear of death, we have to go past the unknowns to get to what we do know. Well, Jesus did, as believers, we believe Jesus did rise again from the dead. And because of that, it's not there's different definitions of hope. And hope can be wishful thinking, or hope can be absolute certainty. And when we lean into the resurrection of Jesus, we have absolute certainty that our eternities are sealed, and we need to sometimes place our mind there and go, no, that I know where I'm going. Amen. When I die, and that erases that fear.
So what are the consequences of living in fear, and how does this impact the way we live our daily lives, outside of maybe getting an ulcer, having to deal with that, and having to deal with high blood pressure?
Well, funny story that you bring up high blood pressure, because I'll just be a little bit vulnerable here. I came to we talked about fear being irrational, and I had, for the longest time, my mom about 12 years ago passed away from a battle with cancer. And when you watch someone so close to you die, cancer is a terrible disease. It's a merciless disease, and it's tragic to someone to pass away from, but what it does to the body and all the rest of it. Well, that I didn't realize, after mourning her, I didn't realize that it created this fear inside of me of cancer and of that. And so I had this fear of doctors. And a couple of years ago, I went to the doctor, and the doctor says to me, he says, "You've got crazy high blood pressure, and alarmingly so. We're gonna have to get you on medication like right away." And he sent me home with this blood pressure machine. I was like, man, I felt healthy. I work out all the time. I eat properly. Like, I was like, what is the problem? And it's funny, I took the blood pressure machine home and plugged it in, and my blood pressure was, be like at the very healthiest level that it possibly could be all throughout the week. And so I brought it back into the doctor, and the doctor, he's like, "You know what the problem is?" He said, "Kelly," he says, "this machine," he says, "the problem is you're afraid of me." And I went, "What?" And he said, "When you walked into here, your heart rate ran up, your blood pressure, to the place where it increased your blood pressure to an unhealthy level." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And it kind of hit me right in the face. And I walked out. I was like, "Why am I afraid?" Well, I was afraid of going to the doctor. Talk about irrational fear. I was afraid of going to the doctor because of him diagnosing and saying, "Well, you have cancer." Well, the funny thing is, the doctor's not the enemy. He's not the one that gives you the cancer. He's the one that actually is going to, if you do have cancer, he's the one that you need to help you kind of walk through the whole process and to save you from all that thing. But this irrational fear came into my heart that it does affect your health. It affects your mind. It affects your relationships. It affects your ability to move forward. Your greatest potential is going to be held back because you can get trapped in fear. And so fear is deadly. I think it's the great captivator, and I'm really quite concerned. Interesting choice of words, I think, but I'm really quite concerned because in our society, I think fear is so prevalent today, more so that it's creating craziness in our world, irrational behavior, irrational conversations, tensions like we've never seen before. And it's just, we look and go, the world's going crazy. And I think the root of that is fear.
You know what I've noticed as well, Pastor Kelly, that even kids are becoming more fearful of the future. Many are believing the mainstream media playing a lot into people's fears. Will my grandparents die from the coronavirus? Will the world end because of climate change? Any thoughts on how to instill hope and faith in our younger generation?
It's funny you'd ask that. I just heard today that they just did a survey in the US, and they discovered that the people that are most vulnerable and should be the most afraid of the virus are the ones that are least afraid. And in fact, the study showed that the older you are, the more resilient you are, and the less fearful you are in these circumstances. And that really, this virus and the lockdowns and the media and all the rest of feeding a lot of fear into our young people. And I think that's dangerous. And they said one of the things, and they're pressing into why the older generation is less fearful than the younger generation. What's the tension here? But I think as we age, we go through things and going, I made it through that. I survived that. This is not going to be a problem. I've made it through this trial. I can do that. And so sometimes we can have, just through the act of courage and going through a process, we will learn, and we become more bold and saying, yeah, I can survive that. I can survive this. And I think for young people, a lot of it is, the fear is just lack of experience or just naiveness as to, is this big, and realizing, I think you realize, like I realize, that, the media is getting paid by fear. They get more hits if they can create more sensational headlines and more fear. That companies will actually sell and make more money based on fear. They'll drive this fear of you not having that, and they know that it makes money, so fear sells. And because of that, our whole society is so adept to fear that we don't even realize it's fear anymore that's motivating us.
Do you think it's really important to make a list of things we're thankful for, to take the focus off of fear and maybe more onto appreciation?
Yeah, again, it becomes what you focus on. So if you focus on what you don't have, you're going to be susceptible to fear. If you focus on missing out, you're going to be susceptible to fear. So Paul said it in Philippians, right? He says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition. So he said, okay, present every situation to God and saying, okay, I trust you. That's number one. But then he says, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And it's so important that he said with thanksgiving, because why is that? Well, thanksgiving shifts your focus to what I do have, the strength I have, the things that are good, the things that I'm thankful for. And that shift of focus, I think, gives us the courage to be able to move ahead.
Some recent stats we dug up from Statistics Canada also talks about the fact that less and less couples are getting married these days. Apparently, one of the main reasons given was the fear of getting divorced. Your thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's what you focus on. So we have this what if scenario in our head all the time and going, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, that's a crazy thing. Like, what if it does? Like, what you're missing out if you don't move ahead. So, like, you're afraid of missing out, so you don't move at all. And that's how fear works. It's just completely irrational. And I think the fear of commitment, and a lot of that is driven by, and a lot of our fears are driven by past pains. So these young people who have seen a divorce or lived through a divorce as a child, saying, I don't want that, and that past pain is now feeding this fear ahead, instead of saying, hey, I saw that mistake, I can learn from that mistake, and I saw what didn't work, and I'm going to apply this so that it will work. Is again what you focus on, you're going to give power to.
So, Pastor Kelly, any final advice for viewers who are struggling with fear today?
Yes, absolutely. I think the greatest advice that we can do, this is what's worked for me, and this is actually my whole story about going to the doctor. This is kind of how I got myself out of that fear. Is a lot of times fear is fed by the what ifs. So what if I get cancer? And so my advice to people is, identify the what ifs and replace it with God is. So what if I get cancer? Well, God is my healer. Well, what if I lose my job? Well, God is my provider. Well, what if? And whatever the what if is, the Bible has the answer. And again, it shifts my focus, but it puts my trust in God. So I'd encourage everybody that if you're battling with fear, and let's just be honest, all of us do. This is not something that's anyone's exempt from. But when we battle with fear, just replace your what if with God is.
I love that. He's our comforter and our provider. Kelly Stickle, the lead pastor of My Victory Churches in Lethbridge and Southern Alberta, thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much, Hal. This has been great.
Well, we all want to be in great shape and have nice bodies, so we try fad diets and start to exercise, but often it doesn't last long before we give up. How can we find a way to get fit, stick to it, and stay fit? Joining us today to chat about this is Shane Garner, owner of Anytime Fitness, right here in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News, Shane.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, can you tell us a bit about what kind of a gym Anytime Fitness is? Do you do personal training or do you do classes?
Absolutely. So we're a commercial gym. We're located at 338 University Drive West. So that'd be right across the street from Save On Foods on the west side. We're a commercial gym with 24-hour access. We offer memberships, personal training, group training, supplements, and nutrition programs. And really the thing that we try to differentiate ourselves from other commercial gyms is we're the club that coaches, cares, and connects. And what that means basically is when someone comes through the front door, there's resources available regardless of skill level. So if you just come through the front door and you're good to go and you just want to work out, obviously that's great. We can accommodate you. But if somebody comes in and maybe they've never stepped foot into a gym and they need all the resources that we can offer, that's perfect too, because we have a platform that can assist them. And really that's it, right? Is we try to be a club that can accommodate all skill levels, because sometimes coming to the gym is quite scary and it's intimidating, and we just try to remove that whole aspect of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what age groups are able to participate with you?
Anywhere from 14 to unlimited. And we really do see, being on the west side, we see all age groups, all demographics, all body sizes, all body shapes, all different levels of experiences. And that's really what we are. We're the neighborhood gym. So in saying that, we get the neighborhood.
That's awesome. Now, I'm guessing that it's been a financial challenge for gym owners with COVID restrictions in place. So as someone who sees this firsthand every day, would you say gyms are at least as safe as shopping at local grocery stores?
Well, obviously I'm a bit biased, but for the general public that maybe don't know what all goes on, I would say obviously yes. The reason I'd say yes is because of the level of cleanliness and safety that's been regulated by the government for us, but also because of the standard that members expect from us. So with so much media coverage on what's going on, I mean, the expectations are very high for us to conduct ourselves in a professional manner. We've always prided ourselves on operating a really clean, organized, tidy gym, but with the COVID restrictions coming onto the scene, obviously things have been heightened to another level. And I mean, members already wiped equipment, before they use it, after they use it, but really it was the education on our staff to accommodate the new regulations. So, I mean, our staff members are sanitizing high touch points every 45 minutes, like handles, railings, that kind of stuff. We're even we bought a bunch of commercial fogging machines. And we've just openly invited AHS to also come and tour the facility and make sure that we're compliant, we're doing everything right, and we're protecting the members. And I mean, for us, we had over 25,000 visits over a 6-month period, and we've had no COVID-related cases. So, I mean, we're doing our very best. And I mean, the industry as a whole is doing quite well as well.
That's amazing. You guys are right on top of it. I absolutely love it. So speaking of physical fitness, so where are we at in Southern Alberta? How do we generally score on the physical fitness report card?
We're doing a lot better, especially in the last 5 years. Regardless of area or demographics, but the awareness of just health and wellness by people generally is something that's definitely becoming more and more conscious for people, and people are definitely taking active steps to making healthy life changes. And then those are obviously, from the extreme all the way to, I mean, a lot of people are just starting to move, right? They're just becoming conscious that they can no longer live this lifestyle and they need to improve it. And they're making small, subtle changes that are, definitely a step in the right direction.
Right. Now, there might be some people out there who say, hey, I don't exercise all that much. It's not a big deal. But if we're not getting regular exercise, how does this impact our physical and our mental health?
The way we try to explain this to people, because I mean, that's a common attitude. I mean, first and foremost, like the human body, I mean, just as a system, I mean, it's made to move, right? It's made to lift and walk and stretch and be under load. I mean, it's not really made to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day. It's not made to eat all the processed food, which is really common in the lifestyles we live today. And I mean, obviously there's physical and the mental side of that it helps a lot to have active lifestyles. But I mean, the kind of our takeaway with a lot of people is, you either make time for your wellness or you'll be forced to make time for illness. So that seems to resonate with people a lot. And it's so true is, you've got to look after yourself or, there were consequences down the line. So, I mean, nobody wants to do that. So that's why, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, it seems like a lot more people are becoming conscious of that and making the lifestyle changes.
So important. So what stops people from maybe getting started? Is it personal fears that it might be too hard, or that it'll take up too much of their time, or they won't see results for their money?
I think all of those, what you mentioned, are to some degree, but the most prominent one, it's the scared, fear, intimidation. I'm sure you've heard it. We hear it all the time, is people are like, oh, I just need to get in shape before I come to the gym. It sounds silly, but it's true. A lot of people end up doing that, or thinking that's the mentality they need to show up in shape. The amount of people we've had too that, I mean, they sit in their cars and they contemplate for 20 minutes before stepping through the doors is another thing. And it's just the fear of maybe they're going to be embarrassed. I mean, maybe they're going to be ridiculed, maybe all these negative things. And I think that's one of the biggest things that stop people from coming through the doors. And it's not true. When people come through the front door, Most commercial fitness is, obviously Anytime Fitness, but I think most people would be surprised at how accommodating most commercial fitness facilities are. And when they do come through the front doors, even if they are scared, intimidated, maybe they've never set foot in a commercial fitness center, is they all are quite accommodating regardless of skill level. And they usually can accommodate you with a variety of products. So it's really just that getting yourself through the door is the hardest part.
I think you're right. I think that intimidation factor might be what it is, because you picture a gym with all these beautiful buff people, right? And if you think, well, that's not me, yeah, I totally understand that. But I've been attending gyms for all my life, and for the most part, like I've never seen anyone really look down on anybody else. So,
and as you know, the majority of people that are working out, they're just normal people, right? People get the mental image that there's just a bunch of tan, jacked, beautiful people.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
it's not the case.
It's not.
just everyday normal people like you and I, just trying to get in better shape.
Absolutely. Now, what do you recommend for someone who wants to just get started and who wants to keep it simple?
It depends on the obviously the level of experience and level of current physical activity and all that. But just average Joe, just looking to get in better shape and maybe have never entertained an active lifestyle, it's really just moving. Just start moving. A recommendation we always make for people that are just starting to get into it is everyone carries a cell phone around them. It already usually tracks your steps for you. And even just tracking your steps is a step in the right direction. For most people that are just getting into it, is we tell people to aim for about 3,500 steps a day. Maybe if you're a bit more advanced, then shooting for 5,000 steps a day. And then things like, maybe they don't want to come to a gym quite yet, but using your body weight for exercises, things like jumping jacks or body weight squats or stretching. And again, just using your body for what it's meant for. And of course, making healthier food choices is another one that we would recommend.
Right, absolutely. And that's all stuff you can do in the privacy of your own home too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Now, how important is the cardiovascular part of an exercise plan, and what would be some good alternatives to running for those that might have some joint issues?
For the jogging, because that's another one, right? Where people think, well, I'm gonna get in shape, I'll start running. And running is quite advanced for the majority of people. It's usually not the recommendation we make. It usually can be quite hard on the body, especially if it's untrained. So we usually don't recommend jogging, and it's rarely a good fit for most people, especially people that have been inactive. But other alternatives, like I said, would be like walking is a really good start. Walking with an incline, if you do have access to a treadmill, is a really good start to start challenging yourself. If you do have pre-existing hip, knee, joint concerns or issues, is like ellipticals would be another one. It's very low impact. Steppers, swimming, biking. Those are all really good choices to kind of exchange for the jogging. And usually, typically, people work themselves up to running, but it can be very hard on you if you're just going from a completely inactive lifestyle to jogging, and then it kind of makes you feel beat up and tired, and maybe you're not going to have that for the long duration, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, any advice on how to go about developing muscle building routines without injuring yourself, and also how important is it to build muscles?
Yeah, for as far as like developing a routine, obviously, everyone has access to the internet. Sometimes with the internet, there's almost an overabundance of information. It's hard to sort it all through what you should be doing. We offer the Anytime Fitness app. It has 4,000 workouts on it for a variety of skill levels. But that's something we can help you with. People can reach out to us, or like I said, log online. Some of the things that people are going to notice, especially as they age, is increasing bone density. It can recharge the metabolism and increase the capacity, enhancing mental health. We talked about that a little bit. And then just reversing physical frailty. It goes back to us talking about the human body is just made to, exert and be under load. So those are the things you're going to notice. And especially as people age, it's so important to keep some sort of healthy, active lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned aging. So I know muscles obviously develop more easily when you are young, but older people should try to build muscles too. So what would you recommend for like a senior citizen, how to get started on that?
Really, it's going back to what we originally talked about. So if someone is classified as a senior citizen and maybe they don't have a prior experience, it's getting back into that movement, right? Is getting into some walking, tracking the steps, just starting with some very moderate body weight exercises, and of course, making healthy decisions. But the biggest aspect there is to not go too hard, too much, too fast. And if somebody is venturing out and they're trying to get into shape, I think another really key component is asking for advice, and just make sure that advice is backed up by someone with some experience, because there's lots of advice out there. Some of it's poor, some of it's phenomenal. Just make sure you've got the proper advice as well.
That's great. And then on the flip side, at what age can youngsters start using weights while being safe, of course?
Yeah, typically 14 is there's some, again, this is a really highly debated subject, and there's quite a bit of science coming into play here. But typically what we recommend is if 14 and over you can begin to start weight training. We don't recommend any large loads being placed in the body younger than that. And then as people progress into the 15, 16, 17, then obviously the amount of intensity and loads increase as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's better, to do lower reps with heavier weights or more reps with less weight? What works better?
I would say it depends.
Okay.
It depends on the goal. So science says reps 1 to 5 are going to be the most beneficial for strength building. Okay. Science says reps for 6 to 12 are going to be the most beneficial for muscle building. Okay. And then reps 12 to 20 are going to be the most beneficial for training a muscle for performing under load for duration or endurance. So it really depends on the goal, but typically most people are going to fall in that 6 to 12 range because they're trying to get the muscle stronger, a little bit bigger, probably look a little bit better is one of the goals. And that's usually what we recommend.
Okay. Now, if somebody is overweight, how can they start doing exercises safely? What do you recommend for that?
A lot of, again, if overweight and inactive, again, a really good place to start maybe building the confidence and even just kind of learning your body of what it's capable of and what it's not capable of at the moment is, again, just going back to that movement, is start moving, start getting out there, tracking your steps, and just start building that foundation so that you start to explore your body and realize what it, and then as you do that, you're going to gain confidence and you're going to want to gradually move into a commercial facility. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's really a typical way to do it. I mean, I don't want to paint the wrong image either. And of course, you can just show up to a commercial fitness facility and they'll be glad to have you and they'll accommodate you too. So the nice part about that is you're going to get the expert advice right out of the gate. But it just depends on the comfort level.
Right. And of course, we want to encourage viewers who might be struggling in this area. So do you have any clients at Anytime Fitness who maybe defied the odds and have lost a significant amount of weight? Any success stories?
So weight loss is one of our specialties there. We've actually had multiple examples of clients losing over 100 pounds. And the 100 pounds is obviously significant. But what's more significant is you literally see people transform their personalities, their confidence, their energy levels, everything, even all the way down to like the relationship with their spouse or their kids. I mean, it can be life changing. So yeah, I mean, we do have multiple examples of that. I mean, we do have examples of that with pictures in the club if anyone's interested and want to discuss that further. Yeah, it's really, I just can't get over how that's one of the most exciting aspects of being part of this.
That's amazing. It looks like we are out of time, but thanks so much for being with us today, Shane. Shane Gardner is the owner of Anytime Fitness here in Lethbridge. We appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.